The chandelier lights glittered like frozen stars, throwing their brilliance across the ballroom, where crystal glasses clinked, champagne fizz-bubbled, and shallow laughter rose in waves. To everyone else, it was a night of celebration. To me, it was supposed to be the proudest moment of our lives. I was 7 months pregnant, wrapped in a pale gold gown that shimmered under the lights. My hands often strayed to the gentle curve of my belly, feeling the rhythmic kicks of the child who was my world. Tonight, my husband, Adrian Calloway, was hosting the most important gala of his career. He was no longer just a successful entrepreneur. He was a name whispered in the corridors of wealth and power, and I, Eleanor, was supposed to be his queen. I had spent weeks planning every detail of this party. The soft music, the delicate floral arrangements, the perfect menu. I thought if I created a beautiful night, it would remind him of us, of where we had started, of the love that had carried us through leaner years. But as I moved through the crowd, balancing my tired feet in shoes too high for comfort, I saw him, Adrian, standing tall and charismatic, his arm casually draped around another woman. She was all red silk and sharp smiles, her laughter ringing louder than the string quartet. The way she leaned into him was not the way an employee leaned on her boss, and the way he allowed it told me all I needed to know. I swallowed the ache in my throat, plastering on a smile as I greeted guests, pretending not to notice the whispers behind manicured hands, pretending not to notice the way Adrian's eyes never once sought me out. But then it happened. A waiter stumbled, his tray tilting, champagne spilling onto the suit of a wealthy investor. I saw the panic in the young man's eyes, and instinctively I stepped forward. "Please don't worry," I said kindly to the investor, reaching for a napkin. "We'll have this cleaned up right away." It was the smallest gesture, a hostess protecting her guest. But Adrian's face darkened instantly. "I was speaking," he hissed through clenched teeth. His voice low enough only I could hear. Before I could respond, his hand shot out, not in affection but in irritation. He shoved my arm away, just hard enough to send me stumbling. My shoes betrayed me, my balance faltered, and in one humiliating moment, I crumpled onto the marble floor. Gasps echoed. The music faltered. The air itself seemed to freeze, my cheek pressed against the cold stone as silence spread across the room. My gown pooled around me like spilled sunlight, but there was no warmth in it. Only shame, and then his voice, smooth, arrogant, cutting. "Now you all see what I have to deal with every day," Adrian announced, his arm tightening around the woman in red. His words dripped with disdain, as though I were not his wife carrying his child, but an inconvenience he was forced to endure. Some of his colleagues chuckled weakly, desperate to stay in his favor. Others looked away, embarrassed. But no one helped me, not even him. I stayed there for a long, breathless second, my body trembling, my heart breaking. I had loved this man with everything I had. I had given him my trust, my sacrifices, my future. And in return, he had given me humiliation. In that moment, something inside me cracked, but it did not shatter into weakness. It hardened. I lifted myself slowly, refusing to cry in front of them. My hand pressed against my belly, feeling the tiny kick of life inside me. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't weak. As I looked up at my husband, the man I no longer recognized, a cold clarity settled over me. He thought he had broken me, but he had only awakened something far stronger. This was the night Adrian Calloway signed away his crown. He just didn't know it yet. The night after the gala, Eleanor sat awake in the quiet of the guest room, her hands resting protectively on her growing belly. Sleep refused to come, her mind replaying the moment over and over, the laughter, the silence, the sting of betrayal. But beneath the ache was a rising tide of determination. She remembered when Adrian had been nothing more than a dreamer in a small apartment, living off instant noodles and ambition. It was her savings that became the foundation of his empire, her name that secured the first loans when banks refused to take him seriously, her belief that kept his vision alive. She had poured her soul into his success, and somewhere along the way he had forgotten that. Or perhaps, she thought bitterly, he had chosen to forget. As dawn painted the sky with muted gold, Eleanor knew she couldn't allow his betrayal to define her story. What he saw as weakness was the very fire that would become her strength, and soon the world would see the truth he tried to bury. Days turned into weeks, yet Adrian never once apologized or even acknowledged the humiliation he had caused. He carried on with his parties, his meetings, and the woman in red by his side, as though Eleanor had faded into the background of his glittering world. But Eleanor was not fading. She was watching, learning, gathering every detail. Beneath her calm silence, a plan began to take shape, a quiet storm no one could see coming. She spent long evenings in the library, revisiting old documents, loan papers, and contracts she had signed years ago. The truth became clear. Much of the empire still carried her name, her signature, her approval. Adrian might have believed he was the sole king of his castle, but the foundation of it all was hers. Every sleepless night she endured, every sacrifice she made, every tear she swallowed in silence, those were not wasted. They were the bricks of something greater. And with every heartbeat of the child she carried, Eleanor knew the moment of reckoning was drawing near. The turning point came quietly, like dawn breaking after the darkest night. One morning, while Adrian boasted in the media about his brilliance, Eleanor slipped into the office that once had been theirs. Stacks of contracts lined the shelves, papers he had long forgotten, but she had never stopped remembering. Her hands trembled as she opened the safe, her name, again and again, etched into the ownership papers, the investments, the very foundation of his fortune. It was as though the past had been waiting for her to claim it. For the first time in months, Eleanor smiled, not with bitterness, but with clarity. She realized she didn't need to shout, didn't need to fight him in the ways he expected. Her strength was in patience, in precision, in truth. While he underestimated her, she would prepare. Each signature she once gave, each dollar she once risked, was now her silent weapon. And as she folded the papers back into place, her heart whispered, "He built an empire on my belief. Now it is my turn to rise." The night of Adrian's grand announcement arrived, a lavish event where cameras flashed and reporters crowded to capture his latest triumph. He stood tall, convinced that the world revolved around him, unaware that the spotlight he craved was about to expose more than his success. Eleanor entered quietly, radiant in a simple gown, her presence commanding attention without a single word. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She had been absent from the public eye for weeks, yet here she was, calm and composed. When Adrian raised his glass to boast of victories, Eleanor stepped forward. She held up documents, her voice steady but piercing, revealing that much of the empire he claimed as his own had always been secured in her name. Gasps filled the hall as truth unfolded, undeniable and sharp. Adrian's laughter faltered, his confidence cracking. And in that moment, Eleanor did not need anger. Her power came from truth, from dignity, from finally being seen. The world now knew who the true architect of his empire was. The aftermath was a storm Adrian never saw coming. Overnight, headlines shifted from his celebrated achievements to Eleanor's revelation, the hidden story of the woman who had built the empire he claimed as his own. Investors who once bowed to him now turned to her, recognizing the strength and wisdom behind the success. Yet Eleanor's triumph was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her voice, and her future. She chose not to gloat, but to stand tall as a reminder that respect and truth could outshine arrogance. With her child soon to arrive, She walked away from the glittering world that had once chained her, carrying only her courage and the knowledge that she had already won. Her story spread beyond business circles, touching hearts everywhere, becoming a testament to resilience and hope. What began as a night of humiliation ended as a story of rebirth, a reminder that even in the darkest betrayal, a new strength can rise and change everything.